this exciting panel. So the subject of the panel is how do they win over the future, building brands that resonate with customers. So we wanted to identify three major themes that feed into this broader theme. Number one is there is a new audience which we call in the Gen Z and Gen Alpha, which is Gen Z is 15 to 30 years and Gen Alpha is 15 below, and all of them are emerging consumers. And what qualifies these people as a different audience than the rest is they are what you call digital native consumers. I mean, from the time they have become teenagers and adults, they have been using digital as the means through which to navigate the world. And they are entrepreneurial, they are inclusive and activist. So there are a variety of things that characterize these segments, and those will evolve to be the customers of many of our leaders here today. That's one. The second one is the emergence of AI and the multiple ways in which AI is enabling both the targeting of the customer base and how do you engage with them, how do you re-engage with them. So as a whole, technology is shifting under our feet as we speak. The third one is the whole definition of a brand, which is conventionally we saw it as a logo or a brand or an advertising. But today, because of this fierce engagement of our audience with the brand across multiple channels, so the brand is coming to be characterized both by how we engage with our consumers on a regular basis. So the first one is the new audience, second one is new technology, and the third one is a new definition of the brand. We are fortunate to have leaders from a diverse segments. We have from quick service restaurant to rice, to fashion, to beauty, to e-commerce. So we'll get different perspectives from these leaders today. So I want to start by asking each of them a simple question, is that in the recent past, let's say last 5 to 10 years, where the world has dramatically changed, what is your definition of a brand? Do you have any quote, do you have any remarkable figure that you can think of that inspires you? And how do you see brand? From that, we will go to the next one. So we'll start at the far end, Mr. Gaurav.
Yeah, so Satya, I think for me, I've been working on brands for the last 17, 18 years. I really don't think the essence of brands have changed, right? So the brands is like it's an intangible asset which has an emotional connect and has a benefit for the consumer. I think that remains the same. Over years, what has definitely changed is how it was. I do think, and we can always say, in the past it was easier to do. I do think it was much easier to build brands earlier than in today, just because of fierce competition, exploding number of media outlets, and reducing attention span of consumers.
Absolutely.
So that's the thing which has changed. The consumers have changed. I think the definition of brand still remains the same for me. What it has been for years.
Yeah. Next, from LT Foods, we have Mr. Ganapati.
Thank you, Satya. Honestly speaking, the definition from Kotler, which I don't remember, frankly, still continues. So I still keep my faith in that. But the fact that the dimension of what you call as a brand has undergone a tremendous change.
Yeah.
Physical entities, were more profound in making impact. Today, what you stand for is more profound in making impact. Both of them were part of the brand identity per se. Today, one dimension has seen more impact versus the other dimension. That shift, primarily, what we are going to discuss today, because of new audiences, newer technology, the newer ways in which we are looking and consuming communication. All of that has engineered that shift. And hence, while the definitions, while the structure, the formats are the same, the leverage and the impact of constituents of that equation have changed. That's what brands have become today. So to answer you, I don't have a new definition which has fitted, but I feel, as Gaurav rightly pointed out, it's still the same definition, it's just the emphasis has changed. So can we use better lenses to view that emphasis is what I feel works.
Thanks Satya, of course. While I primarily agree with both Ganpati and Gaurav, I do think that today, when we talk about specifically about the generation we are talking about, we are all, we have shortened our communication style, but we are yet more connected. And I think that's where we need to drive relevance as a brand. For me, today, brands equal to partnerships. Now, how do you drive those partnerships across your channels, different channels? Your omni-channel strategy is what will make you stand apart, be it fierce competitors or visibility, consideration, conversion. I mean, all of those metrics come later. But if we crack the attention span conversation without losing who you are as a brand, I think that's what will drive marketing.
Hi, good evening, everybody. So while I agree, obviously, with the panelist, I just have one thing to add in that. I think what has changed is the brand relationship has changed, in my opinion. If I look back and I remember when I started my career about 15 years ago, majorly there was 4 things, right? There was TV, there was print, there's radio, and there's out of home. That's it. And each one of them was a relationship which was a one-sided lover relationship. I tell you things, you listen. Right? So TV, you cannot interact with the television. There's no QR code, there's no scanning happening. So TV is there, there's an ad playing, and that's it, done, right? There's obviously no digital. Print, there is no way of interacting. Out of home, there is no way of interacting. So it's like a loudspeaker, somebody standing on the corner of the street and just screaming in the loudspeaker, and you just got to listen, and that's it. You can't have a relationship. But now, brand cannot not have a relationship. Now, if it is print, it better be interactive. If it is magazine, it better be interactive. If it is TV, there better be a QR code. Digital, obviously, it's all about relationships. So now, rather than, the consumer trying to find the brand, is the brand has to make sure that they are present where consumer is. So it's more brand chasing the consumer than the other way around. So I think the relationship is something that in my head has changed drastically. And that's why now the job of a marketer is even more difficult, because constantly you're just chasing where is the consumer, in the digital world and in the real world, and how do I find that opportune moment where the customer is going to listen to me, right? So I think that relationship dynamic in my head has changed quite a bit.
Yeah. So plus one on all that everybody said. I think in my 20-odd years of working, the definition of a brand remains very much the same. It's a summation of all the experiences that a customer experiences across touch points. And that's not changed, honestly. What has changed, like everybody else said, are the touch points, how many touch points you're actually experiencing. Customers, the mix might have changed. You may have maybe a younger audience that has more disposable income that they're able to afford, and a lot about the relationships and what affects those touch points. But generally speaking, it hasn't. We just have to find our way through a very fragmented attention span, that is there with customers, and that's our challenge.
Yeah. So one important thing, which is what some of you have mentioned, is this extremely small fragmented attention span people have. Because for the consumer, the time is inelastic. You can kick and scream all you want, and you have only 24 hours in a day. And as marketing leaders, your job is frightfully difficult, because while competition is increasing tremendously, attention span of the consumer, I have a certain fondness for Urdu poetry, and my wife and I watched this series on Netflix, right, Hira Mandi. So in Instagram Reels, it figured it out. It constantly feeds the 30-second reels, ek bar dekh lijiye, keeps on coming up, right? So the consumer his time is sucked away by content that is so super targeted, with using AI, using other things. So the attention that the consumer has left to understand brands and to do and to figure things out has dramatically come down. So in this age, especially the younger people and who are infatuated by social media, very super targeted social media and hyper competition, what are some specific things you are doing to capture that attention, right? And give some examples would be great, so that the audience will also take something back home. Again, we can start at your end, Gaurav.
So, Satya, I'll talk about one very classical thing which still holds correct, Attention, how much attention I will give to you is a function of how much relevant you are to me. So, while there are all technologies available, the ability for marketeers, or one of the still I think a big skill for marketeers, is to be able to develop insights about consumer. That still holds very good, because if I am trying to sell you something with a message which is irrelevant to you or to an audience, the chance of getting attention is less. If the message relevance is high, or the hook of the communication is high, the chance of getting attention is higher. So that's a very classical thing which used to be very important 20 years back, still is very important. I'll talk about the new age things which become, while there is fragmentation of attention spans, I think the other power which marketers have today is technology. So we do service our consumers through apps, right? So a lot of consumers log on to apps of either Domino's or Popeye's restaurants, and then choose what they want to eat. Technology allows us to, today we use AI for finding the right recommendations based on your browsing history.
For the user, for the consumer.
For the consumer. So if you're a consumer who's browsed, and so our customer engine, which is internal to Jubilant, will basically scan of what you've been browsing, what you've been consuming, whether you consume one or two. And it's a predictive model which basically allows us to show what is the sequencing of menu that a consumer will see or a guest will see is very tailor-made on an app, right? And these are early days, right? We are all developing models, and then we are fine-tuning those. If you say hand on heart, do they work brilliantly? Yeah, sometimes they do, but they're all evolving models, I would say. That's the beginning that we've made. The second, I would say, it also allows us that if the customer lifecycle management is the other part where technology allows us. So this was not so prevalent, like personalization was not prevalent 20 years back, right? But even if it was, there was very few vehicles which would allow you to do this. CLM, customer lifecycle management, was also not very prevalent 20 years back. Or loyalty cards were the best form people were doing it. Today, we can look at a consumer's history. If you've been a consumer with us, a guest with us, and consumed for long, and then say suddenly a 2 rating or a 1 rating I get on a last order that you consumed, the predictive model can tell me what I need to do. Do I, do a win back even before I lose you? So there are a lot of opportunities that technology also allows. So to just round off your question as to what I would say, to add my 2 bits onto, one is classical, and I think that will stay forever. Relevance of message will never go away. If you give a relevant message to consumer, you will see even more, you will find it even more difficult to get attention. Personalization is something which technology is allowing us today to get better, attention from consumers. And then customer lifecycle management. So I can tune your experience basis who you are, rather than what I give to everyone. So it can be a very tailor-made lifecycle management for a customer. So those are the few things that I would talk about.
So, I sell a brand of rice under the name Dawat, and rice is not part of everyday conversation. You might have conversation of everything under the sun, from the leader you like, from the dress you like, which is, there, which is normal. But no conversation on something which you would have eaten for lunch and intend to eat for dinner also, for most of India. Now, we were selling, and a large part of the category for us was selling the longer, the whiter, the more aromatic, more flavorful, more good looking. And today, interestingly, a large part of my communication is getting to introduce people to recipes from rice on Instagram.
I see.
Okay, and getting them to engage, and incidentally selling rice as part of the process, generating demand, which is fundamental to what we do as a profession. Okay, so that hasn't changed.
Yeah.
And how are we generating demand? It's just that the matrix, the maze has changed. Okay, the cheese has changed, the maze has changed. How are we going to go about it? That's the change in it. So, was it always, so Theodore Levitt said in 1960s, that it's about benefits, not about product parameters.
So you
That's-
think
that's-
there's
that's there.
there's engagement on consumers on how to use rice to make different recipes.
What difference do I make to your life
Yeah.
is the most fundamental question which a marketer needs to ask. What do I have in my bag of tricks is not the answer. What difference do I make to you is the answer. And for that answer, we struggle every day to give a better answer than everybody in the same fray to reach for the same share of wallet, share of stomach, share of the spoon, share of plate, whatever it
Yeah.
is. That's exactly what is happening. So what we do, so like I said, we moved on to introducing people, getting them to be comfortable, getting them to make stuff with rice, different stuff, experiment, paint their own version of a rice recipe every day, either through themselves or through maids or through anybody. That is one way which we've started to do. We've started to celebrate events. We celebrate one of our marquee events called the Dawat World Biryani Day. Now, we don't sell biryani, we sell rice. Without rice, there's no biryani. So we said, what difference can we make to someone's life? The most popular dish of India, anywhere in the world, we started to own it.
Yeah.
And we started to provide for that experience. And that, as we were discussing earlier, is a collaborative experience across brands. Okay, and that's met with one of the big successes.
Sure.
The nature of conversations, the nature of why by me over others has changed. And that's what we've brought to the table.
Great, great.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So I hope I've managed to kind of bring.
How about you, Nisha? You are in a hyper-competitive and fast-changing world of, in your case, you're saying about affordable fashion, eco-sensitive fashion, and sustainable fashion. How are you dealing with this fleeting attention span?
It definitely keeps one on its toes, yes. I'll start by sharing an incident. So a colleague of mine who used to work at Decathlon shared this incident with me that one of his friends who still works there was telling him that now in Bangalore especially, 8 to 10-year-olds come to the Decathlon store on their bicycles and spend on orders worth 8 to 10K. 8 to 10-year-old kids coming on their bicycles and buying sports gear, but spending 8 to 10K. So this tells you two things, right? One, kids are still doing what we were doing at their age, which is cycling. But now the agency they operate with is much more fierce, and they're much more independent in every way. They don't see themselves as kids who don't have agency, who do not know what they're doing or what they're buying, right? This makes you think a lot, and this also makes you as a brand keep up with them in a way where, of course, you work on your product portfolio, but you also work on your technologies. On a spectrum of, when we specifically talk about AI, on a spectrum of AI understanding from fear to skepticism, acceptance to enthusiasm, the generation we are talking about is on the other end of enthusiasm and acceptance. Specifically answering your question about content, that means that now content is also not just consumed, let's say, which is widely thought of, social media. Content is consumed through retention. Content is consumed on your website, even on LinkedIn. Gen Z has a lot to say, on your products through your social, and your content through your social, but also about your brand and your work culture on LinkedIn. Consumers now can directly speak to the founders on LinkedIn. It was never a case before, right? So no complaint is irrelevant, and whatever they have to say has to stay paramount. Now, how do you operate in a world where narrative is more important than facts, right? So when I say that, what I mean is, who's the loudest, most convincing on internet? Everybody's selling something. Now everybody has a personal brand. 7 to 8 years want to be an influencers. Earlier we wanted to be doctors and engineers. Now everybody wants to be an influencer. And I don't say it with cynicism in my voice. I actually say it, but that's the reality. So I think the more you fall on the other side of the boundary where you accept, because they're digital natives, right? Tech usage for them starts much earlier at when they are 3 to 4 year olds. So they are not only enthusiastic about new technologies, they also expect more diverse technologies from brands. So when as a marketer, I have to operate in that space, I make sure that every content piece I'm generating, I am definitely in line with what my generation wants.
Yeah.
My demographics is 18 to 35, which makes it 80% Gen Zs,
Correct.
right? So I have to constantly be very not tone deaf that what content I'm producing, what influencer I'm onboarding. It has been a blanket way of marketing for brands, especially D2C brands, to onboard influencer. But somewhere you have to draw a line there as well. So I'll give you a reference how we work with influencers. Of course, they have a certain following, but now everybody has a certain following. Doesn't even matter what kind of content. Everybody has cracked the viral code. Say something extreme, do something crazy, okay, like, or pick up on a topical topic, be either on the left side of it, right side of it, and you'll get viral, and you'll get your 2 minutes of fame. When we onboard influencers, we don't work with very big influencers and spend marketing dollars there and then figure out the rest of the month. We onboard influencers where our products still remain hero. We onboard influencers where they work in partnership with us to create content where we use their images on website, because consumers react better to influencer images because they are real images, they are real people. At the same time, we don't bring down the quality of our catalog shoots. So that's a balance we do. Even we have just onboarded Chiara Antwani as a brand ambassador. But when we work with Chiara on this, generally what makes brands falters with brand campaigns is they let the celebrity think that they'll make their brand. No. What if the celebrity falters? Your brand falters too? So what we did, we worked in partnership with Chiara. All the clothes she has worn in the campaign film is something we have worked on together. Because consumers see Chiara as certain somebody, they see Libas as certain somebody, and when they see the final product, they can see a glimpse of both in the final product. And then the conversions are higher.
Yeah.
We also are very serious about the technologies we use. So we have personalized our web experiences depending on your shopping patterns. So say if Shivani likes suits more, next time Shivani comes on my website, she will only see suit banners first, right? So conversion is faster, AOV order is bigger, the average spent on the website is higher. So our retention is much better than a lot of other brands in the category. We have 30 to 40% retention because we have segmented our data there as well. We reach out to customers and we personalize messages.
Great.
So if I already have a couple of information about Shivani, or what I'll do is I'll send her birthday wishes. If I know she likes suits more, then I'll say her discount coupon codes for that. I will send her specific emailers where images are used a certain way. So we try to make sure that content and technology runs parallel. I read this quote by the CEO of Netflix recently, and he said that our biggest competitors are Amazon, Amazon Prime, of course, Disney, and sleep.
Sleep,
Says a lot, right?
correct. Yeah. How about you, Rumi, in terms of when you look at your own industry, what are the biggest challenges with respect to this
Color
short
cosmetic
attention?
itself is a big challenge. Makeup is for everybody. From a 9-year-old to whatever, I can't even tell you 60, 70, right? It could be anything, it could be
Yeah.
100 year old. Every woman wears some or the other level of makeup. It could just be a kajal. Even kajal is makeup, right? It doesn't have to be full 7 layers.
I've seen some girls carrying big bags of makeup, this is so
Yeah.
many.
Yeah, so color cosmetic is very diverse. So I am, interestingly, I mean, you brought up the conversation of Gen Z. So interestingly, about 6 months ago, at Swiss Beauty, we launched this new collection called Craze. Swiss Beauty Craze is only for Gen Z. So it is for 16 to 22-year-old only. The good thing is that one beautiful word came from this one lady, which I want to share with everybody. She said, you know what, forget all your BS about storytelling, okay? You live it first. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's very interesting. We have to move from storytelling to story living. That's what she was trying to say. And that became a sort of a mantra in our office that, you know what Gen Z wants? They don't just want you to tell us stories. Don't tell me all of that. But you show me that you're living it. You show me that you're doing it. It's basically a nicer way of saying that walk the walk types.
Give me
how
an
we used to
example.
say.
What do they
So
mean?
what do they mean is that don't tell me that this is what is trending in the market. This is what consumers are doing. Show me your office people. What are they doing? Are they wearing it? Don't tell me that there's a factory where the products are getting it's getting manufactured. Show me real life footage of stuff getting samples getting tested, swatches happening, everything happening in office. They want to know that we are actually using the product that we are selling and not just selling it. They want to know, they don't want us to just tell them, okay, listen, we also don't wear makeup. There are women in our office who don't wear makeup when they're not feeling very good. When they're not feeling very good about themselves, they don't wear makeup, and that's a normal thing. We have started showing so much of real content which is behind the brand. Actual founders, my founders, actual pictures of our NPD meetings, which is a new product development meetings. Actual women walking in telling stories that, हाँ आज काजल नहीं पहना, या look my lipstick smudged, content like that. So they want to see what I am selling. Obviously everything is very pretty on Instagram, no? Everything is pretty, everything has got filters on it and some spark happening somewhere. But that's not real life is. And they want real, they want authentic. They want to know exactly what is happening behind the brand. They want to know the people behind the brand. Sometimes you just forget there are actual people behind, right? You just feel that it's all tools and whatever talking. But there are people like us who are actually using the product that we are selling. We're actually sitting at home and eating rice or wearing libas ka kurta and going on Snapdeal and probably and sitting at home and probably putting a lipstick of Swiss Beauty, right? So that's and probably going to Popeye office well to the restaurant. But the point is, I think that's what it is. I think for us, from storytelling, it's come to story living. That's where we have come to. Even on LinkedIn or Instagram or everywhere, started to show more of the brand behind the brand. I think that's what the key takeaway I would give to everybody.
So great insights and great stories, everyone. I'm in a slightly different space than I would say than most other folks. It's a very busy and a very noisy space. I'm competing against folks who are basically verbs for what people do. You Amazon stuff and you Blinkit stuff. You don't yet Snapdeal stuff. But we've been around about 12, 13 years. And a couple of points that I did want to call out here is that some of the points that everyone brought out, quite key. The basic point remains that as marketers, our nuance remains in our ability to say yes or no to the right thing. So marketing is as much an art as it is a science. So Gaurav spoke about insights. Data is everywhere right now. What do you pull out? What is correct? So in our case, what data might work for Amazon may work for Blinkit, may not work for us. Because I know for a fact that my customer is a tier 3, tier 4 value-conscious customer. For them, for her, for him, what I speak, even if I sell rice or I sell lipstick, it's vernac. You know, the call to action that I take is very different from what an Amazon or a Blinkit would make. So if I know that those are the calls that I have to take on a daily basis, my task is very much the same as a marketer. The second point that, Rumi brought out very well. I have an 8-year-old, so I'm living with an alpha, and I have a huge team of Gen Zs, so that's the other data point that I live. But are they exactly who would shop on Snapdeal? Maybe not all of them. Do they shop on Blinkit? Yes. Do they shop on Meesho? Maybe, right? So that cut is also very, very critical, who you are speaking to. Even if it is a certain cohort or a certain segment that has become the talking point or the relevant segment to respond to, and everywhere from offline to online is doing it, do you really go after them, or the ones that you go after really have a different way of responding? So being true and real to what you have been and what you do is a very, very key ask of marketeers, you know? Yeah. So that's.
In your case, you recently entered India last 2 to 3 years, I suppose, and you're expanding fast. Is your target segment that you are aiming at, your main TG, is that a 25-year-old or is it a 45-year-old? And the second question I want to ask each of you is what is important to a 25-year-old? Are there specific things that are fundamentally different in terms of how they perceive products and services and how they respond to that?
See, our TG is more Gen Z and millennials, right? So it is more 25 years old is what I would say. But actually, if you see a restaurant crowd inside, you would see actually a fair mix of millennials as well.
Yeah.
Even families do come. But our communication mostly targets 25-year-olds. Interestingly, the first insight we worked on is a very famous term today. It's called FOMO. And so the entire premise of the launch was, it's the world's famous chicken sandwich. And, chefs love it, celebrities love it. And it's, the first thing it strikes is FOMO, which is, oh, this is something which I have not tried.
I have to try.
And it's a very common term, right? I'm learning these terms from my team, from my, not kids yet, I'm also having alpha kids. But I think so, see, what I believe is still as a core marketeer, the essence is the same. You still have to give the benefit of, the benefits are changing though. So I'll give you an example, and not from my brand, but we were interacting with a set of college going students, kids, right? So, and they were consuming beverages, cold beverages, boba tea, everything that Dunkin' offers, right? So, we asked them, how do you like it? They said, your taste is very good, but I won't consume it like this because it was in an opaque glass. And then we deep dive, we asked them, so why won't you buy it in opaque glass? Is it because, I can't Instagram this. It's very nice, but I can't Instagram. And the second question, if you would deep down, further, deep dive, why would you want to Instagram? If I can't Instagram, how would I show off to my friends that I'm consuming this? Now, the generation has changed. I won't say that our generation didn't want to show off, but we won't acknowledge that we show off. The confidence of that, I want to show off. It's okay. Humans haven't changed. When we were kids, we wanted to show up, but we won't acknowledge in public. So it's become a norm, right? So I'm saying the consumers are changing. The benefits, marketing remains the same. You still have to target benefits. The benefits that these Gen Zs are seeking or the alphas will seek when they get their wallet loaded. I wasn't aware about the kids in Bangalore, but thankfully my kids are not asking 10K yet. Every Friday, Saturday. But when Gen Alphas have their wallets loaded, how will they consume? What will be the benefits? Our jobs, I completely agree with, Shivani, as marketeers and as old marketeers, 40-year plus marketeers, I would say is becoming difficult because it's difficult to decode this. And I'll give you an example from my own household, right? So I have two alphas at home. Uh, when my daughter was 3, barely speaking, and I had probably misplaced my wallet somewhere, she said, "Have you Googled in that corner?" Google is equal to search for her, right? So, and she can't speak, but she's picking up from the language that we speak when we are using our phones. Even more interesting, my son, who's 5 years old, last week this happened, you know, my wife told him, "You have to eat this." He said, "My body, my choice, you can't force me." 5-year-old. I don't know, like these are kids who are watching television half an hour on a weekend, that's it. So I can't decode, you know, on a lighter note, if I can't decode my own genes, it's very difficult to decode this wide range. So my first recommendation is always try as many more Gen Zs, you know, in your team, even if you are an old market, especially if you are an old marketeer. So, so that's the way I would say it. I have used a different approach. I keep my team honest on the basic principles of marketing, which I think I can do well. I don't debate with them when it comes to, you know, what the consumers want or what they like, because I think they know better than I do.
Sure.
It was quite an interesting take on, you know, how do you go about navigating this wild, wild world. But, you know, for me, you know, I have a whole spectrum. I haven't let go of the family, which has everybody, you know, the entire length and breadth of it. So you have the lady of the house who still believes in controlling what the family gets to eat. She has her conventional wisdom passed over generations, which she demonstrates. So the dal chawal, the sambar rice is always on the plate. It has its own conventional wisdom. The levels of evaluation for the product gets bought and consumed and when is still with her. So, you know, we all respect her and there is communication for her. While at the same time, when we launch a superfood rice, a black rice, a red rice, that's the kid in the house. That's the 25-year in the house, 20 plus, who says, "I want to express myself. I want to tell you something you've been telling me." We've always felt, you know, when we were teenagers, we knew more than our parents, we knew more than everybody around us. And we had our own identity to express. Different ways of doing it. Today, whatever the person is wanting to touch and embrace should communicate some level of identity which the individual carries. And that is exactly getting reflected even in a category like ours. You know? So there are people for whom we launch products. We launch products, we introduce products where, you know, it's not about, so even we are not available in general trade. We are not available in the most conventional rice stores. But we are certainly available in every quick commerce and e-commerce outlet. Each one of our packs carries a digital interface in the form of a QR code to tell you how to cook it. Because if you bought this thing and you don't know how to cook it, you will not going to go back and tell people about it. We want to give you an ace up your sleeve to go out and cook something, create your own canvas and present. And that's how we get mobility in your life. Okay? And that's what technology enables. So today, there is technology. You open up the cameras in your phone, point inside the refrigerator, and it'll tell you what you can cook. And if you're missing on something, certainly point out to a quick commerce outlet and tell you, get this, and this is what you can prepare today. Surprise people. And hence, you know, I won't name them, but cookery shows have found their own space. The second largest piece of digital content being consumed after entertainment is cooking, is food. So I know how to cook, I wish how to cook are not the questions. I want to see what is getting cooked and I want to participate in it by either consuming it or by telling someone how to cook it or showing off my knowledge for it. Can I participate in that as a brand? I can certainly do that. And we have built product portfolios. So across the spectrum of marketing, product portfolios, communication variables.
Good.
We launched products like biryani kits. Okay. You wanted to cook a great biryani, show off, we have a product. You can do that in half an hour.
Yeah.
We'll tell you how to do it. We'll give you a product how to do it. We'll deliver to you through one of our partners in quick commerce in that time. So that's the ecosystem what we need to drive without alienating the heritage. If you are a brand like ours, so I think that's important.
Very
How do you
interesting.
take India along with you?
Very nice, very nice.
That's important.
How about you, Nisha? How are you? You are the core, the primary TG for you is between 20 to 30 years old,
18 to 35 and women, yes.
35 women. And mostly the tier 1 or tier 2, tier 3, how are you segmenting that and how are you reaching them?
No, I think we serve to the entire India and the
Entire
entire
India, okay.
India's audience, yes.
Is there anything about the values of this target group that are different from older age groups?
Yes and no. Yes, because I think the panelists on my right have rightly pointed out. I also believe in this, that consumption patterns haven't really changed. Is how and where we consume stuff now. Where do we consume it? So as a marketer also, you also get swayed a couple of times in the moment about a lot of noise which is there, right? Like, so every day, like how as a person you have to navigate, what Shivani rightly said, that what to say and yes to and no to, but also when should you say yes to something and when should you say no to something. As a marketer as well, you have to choose your battles every day, right? Marketing is a department everybody has a feedback on. So it's a lot of times you have to also kind of do certain things maybe which you don't want to, because also you want to be open to a lot of other perspectives. We also get stuck in our own narrative of, sitting with the marketing team and looking at trends a certain way, but maybe sometimes you don't have to look at things as a brand. Certain time you just have to look at it as another consumer. I think understanding who we are talking to is very, very important, and not just for the heck of it, but then once you have that information, what you do with it. Is it only to show to your boss or just to stay relevant? What do you do with the information you have, right? So when we are talking about kids who are telling his own father, my body, my rules at age 5, like understand who you are talking to. You're talking to people who just by the virtue of being born to millennial parents and older Gen Zs, technology is very, very okay for them, right? So when it is very, very okay for them, they care about issues which we might think do not matter. And the issues this generation care about is compassion, empathy. They really believe in helping other humans, and they write you off if they think that you are a brand who just talks stuff and does not walk the talk. Right? I have seen that happen to us a couple of times. On certain times when we have mentioned a certain fabric on some of our garments, we get called out immediately, right? And we don't shy away from it. We accept a fault and we just start a new day with it. So when you know that this generation cares about certain something, now when you have that information, what do you want to do with that? We are working on building an IP. And that IP is who is a Libas woman, right? We do multiple collections throughout the year. Is it just to stay relevant, or does every collection has to have a conversation? What Ganpati rightly pointed out, right, that the second most consumed content these days is cooking. Now, if cooking around a food product is the second most consumed content piece, then what are the sub-content pieces you can see also on the internet around cooking? You can see now, right now, people cooking in hills. Right? You can, near a water stream. You can see people cooking fresh from farm to table. There are a lot of videos, I personally consume those a lot, where they are picking some fresh produce from the farm and then creating in their kitchen, right? There are village cooking now. There are village people cooking through the traditional village methods. So understanding that, okay, if cooking is what I can see as a sub-trend where content I can create as a brand, and what are the subtopics around it. Sure. So if I'm a clothing brand and women, and so what a beautiful audience to speak to, right? Like what a beautiful TG to work with as well. 18 to 35, like cherry on the cake. I personally think so. So now what are the topics which are relevant to women? We are creating this IP, it's called Libas Better. It's a podcast. and where we speak to women across different topics which are important to women. When I joined Libas, which was some 4-5 months back, we have this house, and under our house of brands, we have this brand called Extra Love, right? Not plus size or whatever, it's called Extra Love. Now, under that, I saw that while the brand was selling really well, the sub-brand was selling really well, I did not see much social visibility for it. Reasons, I didn't inquire. I'm grateful that I was not said no to when I wanted to do a little bit more with that. So I immediately started introducing our collections with it. Our main website banners with those images, with focusing on Extra Love. So it again, not to stay relevant, but also if you know something, then what are you doing with it?
All right. We are, I think, almost out of time. So I have one question to ask. Please respond in one sentence, which is that if, as an audience, if we need to, if you wish, or not wish, but if you advise us to acquire one skill, what would that be to navigate the future? Is it analytics? Is it AI? Is it positioning? What is the one skill that you think would be the most important for all of us going forward?
I would say it's humility, that I don't know, because only when you don't know is when you will learn.
Okay.
And I do think even with 20 years plus of marketing, I still need to learn. So
To keep learning.
Humility is the key skill to have.
I think just add a bit of bravery to humility. Because you are treading spaces where no one else has gone. So you are the Christopher Columbus or the Neil Armstrong of your brand.
Got
So
it.
please be brave enough to walk the talk and walk where nobody is.
How about Nisha? What would you recommend we all learn?
As Bill Gates rightly said, empathy is the biggest skill we all are yet to acquire. We are working with the TG. I think if we are not fearing them, then we'll be able to understand them better. So yeah.
How about you, Rumi?
I think going a little bit away from the emotional aspect of it, I think I would suggest that, in this world of chasing, ASPs and AOVs and LTVs and engagement rate kya hai and reach kya, impression kya hai, I think one thing that is still very relevant is to figure out what is the insight of your brand. And that starts with a human insight, that starts with actually talking to people, and not on Instagram, but actually going and talking to people. Figure out what is that one thing, that one key human insight on which your brand is built, and then just go from there.
So that was curiosity, right? That was curiosity. Okay. So to manage all of these skills, I think you also need mindfulness, because as a marketeer, whether you talk about 20 years ago when I started or now, that's something that we battle with every day. So many things happening, so many different TGs popping up, so many new nuances, AI, so many different. So mindfulness is definitely something that will keep you laser sharp and get you to do the right things.
Great. We're out of time. Thank you all very much. Very insightful and anecdote-filled responses. Thank you. Thank you all very much.